This came about from something I initially came across, and then I've started amending and editing. It was one of those, let's not reinvent the wheel. So what's out there that I can use and tailor to our students. I'm big into technology, and I've always used it in the classroom. One of the things I would do with any practical lessons is I hate paper. So I found it so much easier to create a resource that the students could use with their iPads, and then if they needed any additional help, it was all there for them at a click of a button, quite literally. So this is something, as I say, I came across from a friend, and I've started to add in additional things to just improve the resource, and it can be used. It does take a long time, even though I've been, like I say, I came across this and I've edited it. It's still taken me a good 2 or 3 hours to put together based on that. So this is an interactive music theory, which can be quite tedious for students at times. The great thing about this resource is you can literally click a button and something will happen, and you can't make a mistake. So if we click the home button, it gives me instructions saying, this is the home icon. If you're lost, click it and it'll take you home. There is always a reset button. So the reset button clears absolutely everything on the slide and starts fresh. As soon as you obviously click the reset button, it's going to load up the next button. If I click somewhere else in the page, it won't actually trigger the next movement until I click next. It has to be on the icon. It then brings up these, what I call little topic windows. So unlike the home button, which takes you back to the very start, these will take you back to the home page for the individual topic. Now, in this case, we've got instruments of the orchestra and we've got rhythm or notation. These can be absolutely anything and apply to any subject. So these home icons will take you back to the main topic page. There's always some kind of indication of what to do next. This click the pointer, it prompts the students, and throughout it will always stick with the same colours, the blue, the green for the resets. You have to do this though, and this is the really important bit, in slideshow mode. If it's not in slideshow mode, it just looks like someone's thrown a load of different icons on the page. So we get started. I've changed some of these topics and made them a little bit harder for our students, but it literally, you can click on any of the topics and it's a great revision resource before they take a test. There are built-in tests which will kind of mark themselves. There is a way, and I'm quite happy to take some suggestions because I can't figure it out. You can attach a Google quiz to this, so it's actually embedded, not just the link, and then obviously that you can then produce the data for it. So if we start with something, for example, like instruments of the orchestra, this is something I've been changing. So they click on instruments of the orchestra, it gives them the 4 families of instruments, and if we click on woodwind, we want to know what they actually sound like. So the benefit of obviously working from home and actually having all of my equipment with me, I can actually record some of the sounds and change my piano into any sound possible. So at the moment it's just on a piano, but I can turn that into a clarinet, I can turn it into a piccolo, a flute, a bassoon, and it will play them an audio clip. So if I click on the picture of the bassoon, for example, the students may not know what this instrument is, so they can explore it. If they click somewhere that's not the instrument, it's not going to work. It pops up, gives them a little overview. So it's got the overview and the actual sound, so the students can hear the timbre of the actual instruments. But we're then stuck, so I now need to know what to do next. And because I've read the instructions at the start, I want to just reset this page. So I click the reset button, it disappears and brings my instruments up again. So I can now hear how the bassoon sounds compared to a clarinet. So I could reset and carry on going through the instruments. I could go back to the topic page for the instruments of the orchestra, or I could go back to the home page for the whole kind of overview of the PowerPoint. If I go back to the main topic page and look at the woodwind instruments again, there were different parts. Now, how these are linked, anytime you click a button, instead of it linking to an external link like a YouTube or a video link or a website, it's just linked to a different slide within the PowerPoint. So as I click on either what they sound like, it maybe links to slide 37, for example. If we look at the frequencies of the instrument, now this is something I used last year when I was teaching A-level music technology. It's a great way for students to see how these actually relate to the sciences and how different instruments, their pitches are actually related to just frequency graphs. So we can look at how this is clearly the higher pitched instrument because it's a higher frequency, and how that compares to the lower pitched instruments. So even though this resource is predominantly used at Key Stage 3, the time and effort that's been put in makes it easier for even Key Stage 4 and 5 if they're looking at the use of what type of microphone to use for a piccolo and why that would be different to a bassoon because of the sound characteristics. So if I go back to the homepage again, this takes me right back to the start. So I can go through all of the different topics. It might be that I decide to look at key signatures, for example. And this is where the reset button is really important. And I'm sure the music teachers will now notice. If I click on the key of G major, it tells me that it has 1 sharp, and it's put the 1 sharp on this little hashtag on the stave for me. If I don't click the reset button and I click the key of B flat major, which has 2 flats, it's now actually incorrect information because it wouldn't have this sharp. So it's really important that the students actually click the reset before they click the new key. Otherwise, it just gives them the wrong information. We've got, and this is how I've used this with my classes. This can be quite daunting for students looking at notation, and if you give it them the option, they will automatically want the easier bit of paper. But this is almost, well, I can do this without the embarrassment of going and get maybe the easier music. So we've got our notation, but there are no letter names underneath. So if a student starts to play this, they may struggle, and they may want to get the slightly kind of scaffolded version with the letter names underneath, but maybe not want to ask for that. So here they can just click the unlock button, and when they unlock it, it unlocks the notes for them. So now as they're playing the piece of music, it's got it there for them with the letters and the notation. So you can see there, as we're playing it, if you make a mistake, we can hear it's wrong, but they might not know why. So we can play the audio clip. But now I know what the mistake was. I made a mistake on this note. And I can play the audio. And then once I've maybe got the hang of the first few bars, I can lock it again and increase the level of challenge because they now disappear, and now I'm reading the notation. We quite often ask the students to, once they've performed a piece, to increase the level of challenge, to start changing the musical elements. Now, these symbols are something the students will have seen on one of the previous topics from the homepage. But just as a reminder, in case they've forgotten what this symbol is, they can click on it and it pops up. This is to change the volume of the notes, so the dynamics. We can change the instrumentation. We can change the texture. Again, if they want to then increase that level of challenge to improve their recall, they can just click reset and it disappears. If we go back to the home page and we look at the little tests, there are just some tests built in. Again, this just links to a slide. These can be theory-based tests. These are just really short tests that the students is really no threat because it's on the individual iPad. They don't have to share the results with you straight away. So which musical elements describes volume? So we've just done this. So the musical element describes volume, dynamics. If they were to click an incorrect answer, it just gives them a cross. And once they get to the end, they can then choose how many they got right and then share that with you as the teacher. So how this actually looks from an actual point of view of outside of slideshow mode. Each individual icon and image, as I said, is linked to a specific part of the PowerPoint. So if we look at the musical elements, for example, and I right click and I go to link, I want to edit this link. Instead of it being linked to a web page, it's linked to this document. And in this case, this is linked to slide 35. So when they click on this icon, it takes them to slide 35. Obviously, frequency graph. This will be linked to a different one. This is now linked to slide 33. Once they're on the actual individual slide with all of the information, all we have to do is look at how the triggers in PowerPoint are being controlled. So if we look at this one, for example, and we're looking at the animations that have been used, you have the three types of animations. The enter animations, the once it's entered, do we want to grow, shrink it, and then the disappearing or the exit animations. So as you can see, it looks really complicated, but a lot of this can be copy and pasted. So you can see here with the trigger, and the trigger is the image of the lock button. What happens is, my computer's running a little bit slow, it disappears. The exit is wipe, to disappear, and it wipes all of these individual letters. Whereas the trigger above, which is the unlock, that's doing the opposite, and that's entering the effect. So when you're in slideshow mode, once you click unlock, the enter, and if you click lock, they disappear. With the reset button, all the reset button is removing every transition you've already made. So the trigger is the reset button, and that can be any image that you want it to be. It can be a letter, it can be a series of text. The reset button wipes or disappears everything that is below on an exit transition. Now, when I shared this with the staff at Warrington, they were quite rightly pointing out that actually it'd be better if it was in Google Drive. It is possible in Google Drive, but just not quite the same using the docs. One thing that I found, I've started working on a second one, which is a musical periods, looking at the main areas of studies that we do at Key Stage 4. It works the same. You can link to slide 4. What it doesn't allow you to do, and please someone share it, because if you know, it would be an amazing tool. It doesn't allow you to trigger an image that lets an action happen. So when we look at our transitions, the animation, it only lets you either bring something in or bring something out. So you can link to different slides. So whereas the PowerPoint version has got maybe 41 slides, I've got an even updated version with about 60 with more information on. If it's done in Google Docs, you probably have to times that by 10, because you have to create an individual page for every instrument. So opposed to what I've had previously here, where when we look at the instruments from this one, for example, all of the instruments are hidden behind, but once you're in slideshow mode, you don't see any of that. All the students see is the blank page. You would have to have an individual instrument with a cor anglais, with a bassoon, with a flute, piccolo, oboe, whatever be the instrument, and it links to that fresh version because you can't click a reset button. I have emailed the Google developers to say you need to fix this because Microsoft are beating you at the moment. I'm waiting for a response. So with this, it's great. You can use OneDrive, however. So that's how some of the students have been accessing it, just either sending them the OneDrive, or if you're good enough with computers, and I'm sure our IT department's going to help us, you can export the PowerPoint as a PDF, which allows you to embed audio. I'm just not that clever at the moment. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Takes a while to do, but once you've got it, it's a fantastic resource.